Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I wanted to talk to you about something that's starting to get a lot of buzz. I don't know if I'm surprised or expected it, but either way, I'm sure you're all aware of this, so it's nothing new to you, but thought I would give my 2 cents in, which is worth about a plug nickel. Marjorie Taylor Greene recently said and has said a few times that we need a divorce of the nation. The nation needs a divorce. Now, a lot of people are saying all kinds of different things about that. Is she talking about secession? Is she talking about the nation somehow just saying, you know what, all the conservatives are going to be here and all the liberals are going to be here, all the pro-life's here, all the pro-abortion's here, whatever. It's kind of interesting that this is kind of picking up some speed. A lot of people are talking about it. It's I wouldn't say it's the most popular thing online, but certainly a lot of people are discussing her statement, and many people are calling her out as just this awful person. It's interesting, the Republican Party officially hasn't really said too much about it. They haven't made too many comments. And I think just not really the backlash, because that would be expected, but the amount of people that's saying, you know what, this may not be a bad idea, I think may be the more surprising thing, especially since it comes from someone that, and I'm not putting her down at all, don't get me wrong, just saying that on a mainstream level, she's very fringy, has very little support for a lot of her ideas in Congress. She's kind of out there. I mean, even her own party shuns her. So for someone like that to be getting this much play, it's a little interesting. Do I think that it'll ever happen? Well, I've made several videos on this in the past. I've talked about cultural secession, which is different than political secession, meaning that we as people, as set apart people, should be seceding from the culture. We should have said that a long time ago. You know, we're not going to spend our money on your satanic music and movies. We're going to do our best to support local businesses, support like-minded businesses. We're not going to participate in this culture as much as possible. I know you can't do it all, but that's something that we should have been doing for a very, very long time. That's a little bit different than a divorce of the states. I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually happens, but not in official capacity. I think there's a lot of people, both on the left and the right, that have just about gotten to the point that they're just fed up with how things are going. They're fed up on both sides, and a civil war type of scenario has always been and is becoming more of a real possibility. Whether or not states actually leave the Union, not too sure about that. Although I do know, and I've heard from pretty good sources, that there are certain state representatives in a few different states that are currently talking about that, not as if they would actually try to leave, but if things got so toxic in the Union that they had to go their own way as a state, you know, what type of laws do they need to set up? How do they need to set up the state's infrastructure to withstand that leaving of the Union? Of course, I know that if a state tried to do that, it would probably cause something similar to the last Civil War. But the sentiment that's going on, the amount of division that's going on, which I believe, again, is all being done on purpose, it's getting bigger. The divide is so much wider. I've talked about that several times in the last days and weeks, of how the divide in America amongst Americans is deeper and wider than very possibly during the 1860s. People they can't get along. There's division amongst the different segmented societies. I mean, white people can't get along with other white people. Black people can't get along with other black people. Christians can't get along with other Christians. You know, on and on and on. It's very divisive right now. And so, yeah, I think that we are getting to a point that some level of civil war, secession, dissolution could potentially happen. Not saying that it will, just saying that it's potential. And which is another reason why I encourage people to find areas that you should, you know, that you can find other like-minded individuals. I hear people all the time, well, if you're such a conservative in a liberal state, you should work to reform that. You don't think people haven't tried that for years? I mean, look at the last couple elections, how honest and true and just those things are. You can totally have faith that if you just vote yourself freedom, it'll work. This nation is we're teetering, folks. It's my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to disagree, but this nation is definitely teetering on just a little bit of everything. Financial collapse, world war, civil war, cultural collapse, everything. It's just on the verge. And I believe that is purposeful. And this is why we need to be doing the things I talk about all the time. Finding a place that's more sustainable to live during these times. There's no place on the planet that is completely guaranteed against all the possibilities that could happen. But I can guarantee you that living out here where I live, or in other places that are like this, is going to be much more sustainable than living in, you know, LA, Hollywood, New York City, Chicago, many of those places. It's common sense. So I encourage people to do that, but I also encourage them to get as self-sufficient as possible. Because whatever is going to happen, and at this point I don't know that anyone can exactly know, but it's definitely coming. I don't know how we can continue going down this path as a nation, as a society, and keep this up, keep it sustainable. Or then at some point, just make a 180 and say, oh, well, yeah, we really messed up, and we're going to, on our own, voluntarily, as a people, come together and fix all these problems. If we did, it would be about the first time in history it ever happened. Usually peoples, groups of people, nations, don't make those kind of changes until they hit such a rock bottom, since they don't make those decisions until there's so much death and destruction and collapse that they feel that there's no alternative. I really can't see too many people backing down right now from this, from all the different things going on. The hard left certainly isn't going to back down. Many of the conservatives, they're not going to back down. We're watching our nation really implode. I know that there's still hope with many that the next election could turn things around. It's possible, I guess. But I'll be honest with you, and you can never watch me again if you want to, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not very hopeful that that's going to happen. I stopped being hopeful that would happen a long time ago. And as much as conservatives tend to like certain candidates that are running for election, yeah, they're better than what's in office, but they still don't have a track record of completely turning around everything that's going on. They don't. I mean, I don't see it happening. And I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, because that's certainly not what I want to do. But as things just continue to spiral out of control, and that's really what it is. I mean, the government, the Biden administration tries to present this message and that everything is under control, that everything's good. The job market's great, the economy's great. The whole country is supporting the efforts in Ukraine, while every house in the nation is flying a Ukrainian flag, even though I've never seen one fly. They present this narrative that things are going good. And I think that the more they push this false narrative, the more it's indicative of what's really going on. And I've said on here in the past, probably how you should be preparing is preparing for a collapse of everything. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but you should probably be preparing that way. Because with all the different factors going on domestically and internationally, the likelihood that America really could collapse, that a civil war or just the government start to falter is very real. I don't think it'll get to a world without, rule without law scenario, because there's all kinds of international, factors that will jump in and bring us back together and all that kind of stuff. Because heaven forbid America fall to the conservative far right people. That's not going to happen. They're not going to let that happen. So we're in for a bumpy ride, I would say. And I think many of us have known this for years. We've expected it. Many of us have been surprised we've lasted as long as we have without a collapse. And I would say sometime between now and the next generation, which isn't that far away, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see it. And that's being really generous. I think the reality is we're probably months, maybe just a few years away from that. Because it's hard to imagine us going much further doing the things that we're doing right now as a people. There's no cohesiveness at all in this nation anymore. None whatsoever. And we're seeing what's going to happen. Just little bits here and there. So we've got to continue prepping, getting our houses in order, getting serious. Because we don't know what day we're going to wake up and see things really start to shift and fall off the cliff, folks. And that very well could happen. That's why we do everything we can to get our lives ready for this. To get your houses in order. Prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.